tenacity is without a doubt, I agree with you, the most essential element of success. There's so many people that I've come across that are unbelievably talented, and I'm like, oh my God, if I only could be a quarter as smart as they are and whatever. But I've accomplished and gone farther because of just the tenacity.
Man, this is exciting. This is time number 3.
Yeah.
You're entering like a top 1% of guest area where you've been on several times. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, I love it. I was so excited that you invited me back on. Yeah, that's funny. It feels like the SNL where they're like, how many times have you hosted SNL, or your 5-timer club, 6-timer club? I'm the 3-timer club.
There you go. That's awesome. It's rare, but it's amazing. And honestly, I've enjoyed getting to know you. And so I'm glad our paths crossed. What is new since the last time that we saw each other?
Yeah, exciting stuff. So I'm continuing on my journey of, from hardcore reliability engineering, best practices in product development, electromechanical product development, to helping leadership of technology companies do better at creating organizations and programs that just by default create highly reliable products. So as when we talked the last time, and so 2 years ago, my book Reliability Culture had just come out, which was written for executives to build organizations that make reliable products. Well, apparently I can't stop writing because my third book is going to be coming out sometime this year. It's in editing. And I believe the title is going to be Time to Reliability. Seems like what we settled on because it's kind of a core principle. But first, I'll tell you the funny, it's cliche, but, I'm always creating content. I'm always just enjoy creating content and, talking to people and ideas. And in my work, I document like, oh, there's this good idea and, idea from people, with people collaborating. And I was like, I think this is becoming another book. And there's also some big lessons learned I've had from the last one, right? That's kind of it. It's this journey. And with the last book, I'm like, it didn't quite hit the way I thought. And it took a while for me to realize, I'm like, why is it when I'm talking with people and I'm talking with executives, they're always like, I love it. I love this stuff. But I think had this fantasy when the book came out, there'd be this surge of like these methods being implemented, and there was an increase in it and I saw language change, but it wasn't like this, like I imagined, and I wasn't being grandiose, I was like, oh, it's kind of strange. And then it clicked. It really clicked. And it was that I was writing to the people who want it to happen, but not the ones who do it, right? A CEO, or even a lot of CTOs in organizations or COOs, they want the product development program to by default make highly reliable products. But they're not going to do it. That's not, they're worrying about the quarter. They're worrying about profits. They're worrying about other stuff. And they really don't want to be a part of that process directly, as much as I was kind of picturing they might. And what I realized is, the real value of this content is the level beneath them, the people that they're asking to do it. And sometimes I don't like to use titles too much because in different organizations, the titles and what they do can be very different. And I was like, this is really the people at the top of the business organization and top of the technical organization, still connected to engineering, working better together. And I was like, a lot of this content is the catalyst to them working better. And I realized that that's kind of where I was going after this last one. And, so it became, I was like, all right, I feel like this is a book. And I started writing it in January, like starting to really make it a book. And I found myself kind of being like hesitant, avoiding it a little bit, sitting and kind of writing slowly and getting off track. And I was like, what is going on? It didn't feel right. And if you know me, I like doing a lot of motorcycles and car trips. And I did a couple big trips, and one of the big ones I did was from the Pacific Coast Highway from Seattle down to LA, 1,700 miles, camping at night on the ocean bluffs, like just the redwood forest. It was amazing. And those 8 hours a day in the helmet alone is just this weird epiphany at the end of it. And I came back and I threw out the other book entirely, and I dropped out another 26,000 words in 4 weeks. And it just felt so good. And I'm very excited about this. And it feels like, just no learnings from the last one. I feel like this is really going to help a lot of people that are a couple different levels at the top of this technical organization, directors, VP, senior VP, CTOs. I even have a COO who's very excited about it. But again, organization size and structure changes that. And then on the business and program side, and then finally connecting in that way where you're just making the best decisions through the whole program. And that's really the end result, is that this stuff is working when you are just making the right decisions through the whole program from the beginning.
I agree. I'm curious. I want to talk a little bit more about the epiphany or the clarity. So you said you're in a helmet, you're going up and down the coast. Can you explain more about what you're doing there?
Yeah, with the trip, or
yeah,
so the trip is just fun. I love doing these. Work hard, play hard a little bit. So I do these different random. I've lately been doing a lot with motorcycle trips. So like I had an important business meeting in eastern Montana. And and I knew the people pretty well. And it was kind of a mix to get together some different people, even from different companies, some executives and some other stuff we were working on. And, they were like, you need to be in Columbia Falls, Montana on this day. And I was like, there's a small airport in the same town. You can fly in there. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm going to fly into Spokane, Washington, and drive all the way across 700 miles across there, Idaho and Montana. And I'm like, I'm not going to stay downtown in the hotel with you guys. I'm going to rent somebody had a trailer like out in the middle of a field. And that's where I'm going to stay so I can look at the big sky at night, Montana. So I did this awesome motorcycle ride, just across all that beautiful landscape and everything. And so I've been enjoying that. And the trip, this kind of trip of a lifetime to do the Pacific Coast Highway, which is one of the most beautiful roads in America, came about because a close friend of mine who also rides, he, when his father was passing away, he asked his dad, he's like, Dad, I'm not asking about any life regrets or anything, but is there anything you wish you had done that you didn't get to do? And his dad, who also rides, was like, I always wanted to do the Pacific Coast Highway. And, and I kept putting it off and it never happened. So my buddy, Dan, was like, he was in mind, he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to do it for me, seize the day. And he told me this story and I'm like, I'm in, I'll go, and he's like, oh, I'd love that. So we both have kids and families and all that. And it's a lot of time off to do it. And we planned it. The pandemic hit, postponed it a year. Pandemic continued, postponed it another year. So we kept putting it on the calendar. And we put it on the calendar for September this year, and it happened. So it was really cool.
Nice. What is your family doing? Are they just back at home, or do they go with you?
No, I was on a motorcycle. It was just me on a GS 1200 motorcycle, and him on his bike.
Oh, nice. So just hanging out with your buddies,
this is a motorcycle
doing a ride.
trip. This is this is Easy Rider, right? These are two guys with their sleeping bags tied on the back of the bikes, all your gear for the week, your tent, your tarps. And your loofah sponge to dry it out is the best way to not have it in the bag. And we're sleeping on the cliffs. So we were we only stayed in a hotel one night, but we did that to dry out our gear. So, we have all our gear on our bike and we're riding all day and it gets dark and we're like, we're tired and we're right near, the ocean, going right past it. And it was always on our side. And so you could find a campground, but sometimes I was like, let's just turn right and go through this field till we come to the edge of the cliff. And we'd pitch our tent on the edge of the cliff over the water. And, just that kind of a romantic, just amazing, great experience. And, and then that was like after a day of riding through the redwood forest, or whatever. So it was really fun.
That is pretty cool. When did nerds become cool?
Am I a trailblazer? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I just look around and like all of these people that I know in technology, they have really interesting backgrounds. They have fun hobbies. And, I guess I caught the tail end of growing up and it kind of being odd. I think the generation after me, it was a lot more acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I guess,
cool.
I don't know how to answer that. I think everybody you just are all the different dynamic aspects of you are. Don't put yourself in a box.
We were always cool. It just took everyone else a little bit to catch up and figure it out. Let's go with that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
So you go on this trip, you have this epiphany, you come back. Have you gone on trips before and it provided you clarity around a project that you were working on?
Actually, it's funny. I've really, especially since that trip, noted how important that is to get out of work mode. That it was an eye opener. It was really an eye opener because I'd been driving really hard this past year because I'm also building a new CTO community, actually called T3, and creating that and some other fronts and big work projects and a lot of things. And I didn't realize that I actually had gotten in, even with the trips I was doing, because I'd mixed in 3 really good motorcycle trips over the past 12 months before that. But again, they were work associated a little bit, some of them. And I didn't realize how much I was never turning off my mind from work, even when I'm not doing it, right? I know that you know that. So I've kind of, in a moment of growth, realized I need to really mix in those times where it's really turned off. And then the irony being, that's where I deliver the best content, is when I turn it off, right? In some ways, because I guess in truth, I can't totally turn it off. But if I turn off the burden of it, or this kind of slave driver I have, right? My boss is a jerk who just kind of keeps me going all the time.
Mine
right?
too. Mine too is hard on me.
He's a bastard. Hate that guy.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I'm sure you've realized that too. Especially, I mean, you have a new baby. Things are moving fast, and it can be intense. And it's kind of like if you're a runner, there's a huge difference between. You can run a marathon, but you can't run 3 in a row. You should take a day off or whatever. You got to take that break. It makes a big difference. So I am realizing that actually, if I have to sell to myself as better performance, then that's fine. That's how I sell to myself, but it's needed.
When you don't have a high work ethic, you imagine that being able to focus and clamp onto something and just beat it to death is the skill, because you don't have a high work ethic at some point in your life, right? When you're trying to become better and learning about how to do that and improve yourself. Then your next stage is you're clamped, right? You're just beating it to death. And then you have to mature out of that to realize that you can't just beat it to death all the time. And so it's this difficult maturity process that you have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting, the growth side of it too. And even it's funny too. I was even just talking with a friend of mine today. It's just, as a consultant, it's a little bit of a lonely world, or I think for executives too. And it's great to have peers that you can confide and trust in, which is actually one of the reasons why I'm creating T3 for CTOs, is that it's going to be a confidential place with NDAs signed for both personal and professional sharing of information. The groups are no bigger than 6. And they are able to use that space. They're all going to be on this type that are on the same journey, where the content that I'm creating in my facilitation is in line with their goals, but it allows that space of camaraderie and people helping people. But that comes from how much I've benefited from that. And the example I was going to give is I have a friend that we talk every week just to share. We're both consultants. He's unbelievable. He's at the age where people usually retire and rest, and he's like expanding his consulting business, unbelievable. And he's been an executive and all these different things, very inspirational. Hi, Henry, if you're listening. We really open up about things. And I was really telling him how it's kind of interesting that as you grow and do new things, how much the fear can inhibit you and you don't realize it. And it's funny, no matter how much you've accomplished or can look back on and say, oh, that's great what I've done, or I like my resume. And there's still that weird first day of kindergarten fear when you take another big step forward. And it's all in your head, and so that's why it's great to be able to have peers to talk about it.
Absolutely. And for me, I have to remind myself that when I do get comfortable, I need to associate that with fear so that I get to that next stage. Because I've noticed sometimes that I'll get comfortable and hang out in a spot for a couple months. And luckily I have this recurring event in my calendar from this mentor a few years ago who invested in me. He said every 3 months, put in your calendar a recurring event that asks, several questions that he gave me. And that really helps me, step out of myself so I can get different perspective. Yeah.
That's so great. Isn't that mentor thing great? Because there's people I mentor just out of caring and giving, and people who mentor to me just out of caring and giving. And it's such a wonderful cycle, and it's really good.
For this T3, first of all, super cool name. Have you talked to Etienne de Bruin at all about this?
Who?
Do you know him? Etienne de Bruin?
No, I don't.
Oh, he's taught me so much about how you do it. Like, because it's really clear how you'll do it with 1 or 2 or 3 groups. But then when you try to get 5, 6, 10 groups, you have all the scaling problems that you normally have.
Yeah,
but I'd be more than happy to write that email and make an introduction. I was just talking to him today.
I greatly appreciate that. And your confidence that I'm going to do 1 or 2, 3 groups well, I don't know to see how that goes. I'm going to have most of my questions about that. I'm not going into it thinking, there's a lot to figure out there for me too. So
I always go to infinity. I always scale it up and out as far as I can.
Yeah.
For reliability, I want to talk a little bit more about reliability. Oh, wait, let's give the call to action there. If people want to learn more about T3, where do they go?
So you contact me directly. So it's my email address, abahret@apexridge.com. So, Bahret at apexridge.com. And with the process right now is I'll share with you a summary of high-level information about it. If it's of interest to you, I want to talk further with you. We're going to see if it's a good match. Do I feel like you're a good match for the group? Do you feel like it's what you're doing? And then you'll get an official invitation before March 1st. Nice.
That is really cool. And so what does T3 stand for?
T3. So you're going to see a continuing theme here. So I wanted to, this actually came from, this happened with a really good friend of mine, another person who I greatly admire, amazing consultant, Rich Litvin. We were drinking and smoking cigars in Little Havana in Miami, not that long ago, because we were down in Miami doing some work. And, I was telling him about, how I want this community, and I told him the name I had for it, whatever. And he's like, Adam, there's no story. Like, where's the story? Where's the thing that got you, excited about this? And he's like, just tell me a story about something you think emotionally that relates. And I was like, I think one of the most amazing sports right now on the planet is the Isle of Man TT. And it's a motorcycle race that's been going for 104 years, and they do 200 plus miles an hour on the city streets and country roads for a 34-mile course. And it's the last true gladiator sport. It's unbelievable. It's the boldest sport on the planet. To be able to do that, you're in another stratosphere. That you're, to me, in the same category as astronauts. So it's the boldest sport. It's people that are dedicated to accomplishing something and put everything in. Nothing's left behind. Everything's there, on the line. And that's the mindset and the people I'm looking for this. I want that kind of boldness. I don't want to be working with, let's get you past if you think you want to do this, if you think you can get, is it safe politically to push things a little bit? Is it, I want people that are past that and are ready to commit to evolving their organization to where they just design products that are highly reliable by default, period. You need to be bold. You need to push your other peer executives. You need to push your groups. And, you're not doing it in a careless way, but you are going to, you can't be timid about it. So then I'm calling it it's the CTO's Taurus Trophy, the 3 Ts. And I actually changed the name to Technical Officers Taurus Trophy because I don't want to limit to CTOs. COOs are welcome, senior VPs, even CEOs, because that title isn't always the exact same responsibilities and accountability in the organization in different organizations. Because I've talked with people who are COOs who are like, that's like what I need to do. It's what I need to accomplish. I talk with other people, other organizations where it's the senior VP and they're like, that is on my desk. I need to do it. My CTO assigned it to me. So since the title shift, I changed the name to Technical Officers instead of just CTO, and saying that anybody's welcome who wants to accomplish that.
I agree with you on the title shifting. That is one of the most difficult things that I've tried to figure out how to solve as a speaker, because everyone's listening and I'm going around and I'm interviewing great leaders, you learning about you and product reliability or leadership or whoever it may be, whatever their specialty is. And the information is always so specific. And to provide the context to make it useful for everybody it's almost one of those things where I know, like when I started out, it was really easy because I had this view in my head of how everything was from, my position and my experience. After I talked to a couple hundred people, I realized this thing is crazy. It's across the board. It's everywhere. And so I know exactly what you mean as far as it's really hard to say, hey, we're welcoming all CTOs, because it could be, if you're at, $50 million, you might be the COO with these responsibilities. If you're at $5 million, you might be the CEO with these responsibilities. And so it's really something, I guess, that we would need to build around the responsibility. But the thing is, building it around the responsibility it's a harder marketing challenge, because everybody identifies better with the titles, right?
Right. That's why the interview process. That's why I'm not just, hey, first 6 people are it. I'm like, nope, here's a high level summary. How does this fit with you? All right, let's talk about it. Or because this doesn't work if those 6 people don't jive with each other, in the sense of who they are, what they're trying to do, and all the other peripheral aspects of that. So I want to be very careful about that. And that's also why I want to limit it to 6. And that's funny, he picked the number 7. That's funny, we're thinking the same thing. And I picked that number very specifically from my experience with all my engineering stuff, where when I'm working with teams to do like risk assessment, which means to hypothetically break down how failure modes can occur and what can happen, what can cause them. And there's a lot of creativity in there too, and trying to discover and figure things out. And I found some magic numbers for the group sizes with that. I found that less than 4, it becomes singular. More than 12, it's just a toast. It becomes like 1 or 2 people over talking to everybody else. Other people aren't listening, then they jump in and it goes a different direction. And that kind of like 4 is my minimum, 12 is my maximum, 6 is awesome. So that's that. I chose that number very specifically based on my experiences with groups that are fleshing out things and working towards a goal.
And so right now you're taking more of like an artisan approach, this very specific thing with you and these 6 people. And that's just, you're building your first group right now.
Exactly. I'm trying to formalize something that's been happening informally, in the sense that, I've been working with executives on this, right? This is part of what I do. And so often I'm like, if these 2 people could talk, they really could help each other. I mean, maybe it's a weird analogy or not, but it's like what Alcoholics Anonymous proved, of people figuring stuff out, helping each other, right? Because before, Alcoholics Anonymous is a horrible example, other than it's such an amazingly successful thing for one specific problem that nobody else could create progress with. I mean, there's no doubt that when people who are struggling with something similar work together in a constructed format with a facilitator, the results are amazing, because you can't have a facilitator who's, not in that exact same position at that time, provide that same kind of interesting insight and shared experience from the front line at the same time. That's an important element to growth. And that's why, that is that is an unbelievable big challenge. If you have, something like that, like alcoholism or addiction or whatever, like what an unbelievable challenge to try to overcome that. And it's never over, right? It's just a very continuous, and you should be very diligent and aggressive. And that is the one thing that's stuck, right, through all these decades. So it's there's something very powerful about a group working together.
I'm glad you explained that, because I saw in my meeting prep notes from Josh a line in there, a bullet point in there that says his new group is like AA. Or
Thanks,
technology
Josh.
leaders.
Right,
and I go, how is Adam going to do this? I was like, how is he going to explain that? But you did a great job though. I get it now.
I asked Josh not to write that down. Damn it, Josh.
Yeah. He just, real funny. He's being a silly guy right now on the notes, editing it out. Yeah.
Josh. We're going to talk later. No, I'm glad you did, because that was the thing. Because it's funny. It's it's really the best example I can think of that extremely powerful dynamic, right? Which gets used in many other places, but I guess it's the one everybody knows. But
well, it's smart. You're taking a format everybody's familiar with through their either own life experiences of having attended, or in the movies. You can't not understand, if you consume media to some degree, you can't not understand the format and what AA is, right? It's in so many movies. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
because
it's an easy connection.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm inspired to use it is I've never I've never had an addiction or used it, but that exact same method I found so valuable in some of the other groups I have done, right? So for whatever other collaborative groups, that if they allow the bandwidth to also go to people helping each other, it's always this big step up, this big level step up in results, because that continues after too. It doesn't just continue. That doesn't stop when the meeting closes. So I'm also going to be creating an online, for those groups, they're going to have the ability to continue the discussions online between our sessions as well.
Well, when you have bold people doing bold things and they're all together and sharing, they're building bonds. I mean, that's how relationships are built, is when you go through life together.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love that every time I talk to you, you're always creating something new, whether it's a book or a piece of content. Your email newsletters are hilarious. I opened one a couple weeks ago and I was drunk doing math, and I'm like,
oh, I know the one you're talking about.
I was like, what is this? It was funny though. Yeah.
That was the So that is an article, and I did in my podcast too. That's the title of it, is How I Almost Got Punched in the Face at Work.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, that's what it was.
That was that was it. And then the punchline at the end was the individual who I had frustrated greatly at work. We ended up out in the field, and actually it was in Italy, Milan, trying to solve this problem together. And we did, and we're very excited about it, and ended up going to a very high-end fancy restaurant to kind of celebrate the night before we were going to go back. And unfortunately, when I drink, I become less. I become even more dorky. Like when my filters go down, I'll tell you more math stuff. Like it's like so
fun. Come to my party. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This guy's
stay
great.
home.
I know. Stay home, dude. But no. But then here, let me describe to you how I ended up, how it manifested, and you'll re-invite me to your party. So I was talking to them. I was like, Monte Carlo statistical simulations are amazing because you can calculate things with random number generation, whatever. And he's like, oh my God. So I'm like, no, I can show you. I was like, look, I can calculate pi, 3.14, by throwing breadcrumbs in the air, setting up a plate and napkin and 3 menus, and I can actually calculate pi by just turning that. And he's like, all right, I got to see this. So we're in a fancy restaurant, 2 Americans who drink a bunch, and I'm throwing breadcrumbs in the air, with a kind of a bunch of menus and napkins or whatever. And of course, I can't remember. I'm trying to keep count of which landed where in the plate versus the napkin, because that's the ratio for the number generator. And I can't remember. He's laughing at me, and I'm laughing at myself. And so I guess that is good article content. So.
Well, I loved it, and I laughed as I was scrolling through it, and I definitely read through it. One of the things that I like about you is you are highly intelligent, but you're also self-aware, which means, to your point of that story, you immediately notice when the eyes glazed over. There is a large number of highly intelligent people that don't have that ability, and they will just keep going. But the fact that you have it is one of the reasons why I believe that you're so successful.
Oh, thank you. I greatly appreciate that. And I attribute that to the fact that maybe I have I have just as hard a time learning this stuff as other people. I think when people are so brilliant that it's effortless to learn it, they can't imagine other people not getting it. I think that probably I've struggled just as much as the average bear to learn these things. I think maybe why I appear different is my passion for it is so big. I just won't give up. But I'm sharing with you probably the process I had to go through in my mind to try to understand it, too. So kind of to some degree, maybe there's a disability that I've leveraged to be an advantage in that I can communicate things well because I had a hard time or I was slow to learn it myself or whatever,
Well, I firmly believe that for myself, it's not like a high level of intelligence that causes me to be successful. It's that I'm just relentless.
Yeah.
I will get just the best way to explain it is when I was young, I had an older brother, and I specifically remember this one day where I was probably like 8 years old, and my brother had his friend over, and they were, roughhousing with me, right? Not like beating me up like bloody fists and knuckles, but like pushing me down and things like that and messing with me. And the friend that he had over, they were, they pushed me down. I was on the ground. I got back up, and they did that several times. And finally, he just started laughing. He was like telling me not to get back up, and I kept getting back up, and he was just laughing. And then finally, he's just like, "You are awesome," and he ended up like loving me and like,
yeah.
It's so funny because it's such a great connection to life, because if you're getting beat up, and in those moments when you're getting beat up, it's just like, give up, man, just give up. But those people who don't, those people ultimately, it's almost like you get respect from the universe or respect from God, and then you get a little mystery thing where that'll help you, a little +1, and then you just slowly start to build those up, and you keep going, and then life turns out a lot better than it was when you were getting beat up a lot.
Yeah. Tenacity is without a doubt, I agree with you, the most essential element of success. There's so many people that I've come across that are unbelievably talented, and I'm like, oh my God, if I only could be a quarter as smart as they are and whatever, but I've accomplished and gone farther because of just the tenacity. If they had the same tenacity, they would have gone as far. And so it really is tenacity, and I think it is the key element. I don't think you'll find a single person successful who doesn't have the tenacity. Like, there's never just a talented person who's chill about it.
I think it's more common to find the talented person who just doesn't have a work ethic than it is to find other things. Yeah, because so many times I've heard people, maybe just out in life. One is a really great one, like singers, people who are really good singers. Yeah. And then look, American Idol made a whole show about it. They'll be working at Subway and they're a world-class singer. It's like, if you just go out and apply yourself, you could be, Beyonce-ish. Yeah. You could kind of be Beyonce.
Yes. You'll at least find out how far you can go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. What's your change of topic? What's your podcast about? I want to tell people about your podcast.
Oh yeah. So my podcast is Reliability Leader. It's basically about, the focus for reliability leaders, because it's about how leaders can, like my reliability culture book and this content, how leaders and people who create product development programs can do things differently to fundamentally make better products. But of course, I don't just constrain to that. I'll go wherever the conversation goes or wherever my guest wants to go. Always find lots of fun guests, people who want to, go over different things. I should track down the guy who did want to punch me in the face from like 15 years ago. That would be a great guest to have. I should find them. That's a great idea. Because that was a popular article. I did get a lot of comments on it. And then I did the follow-up one about, I actually drew out the equations and how to do it. It's Reliability Leader. It's just finished my 4th season of it, so it's moving along. I enjoy doing it, and my article series there. You can go to apexridge.com, and at the bottom, there's a sign-up sheet for the article series, and I know people enjoy it, and of course, I post them on LinkedIn as well.
Do you do video podcasts too, or just audio?
Yeah, I don't do video podcasts. I've never taken my podcast and done video, but I generally, as far as video, it's when I do webinars or seminars, speak places, I tend to record them and have them up on my site as well.
And that's just Apex Reliability. What's the website again?
It's apexridge.com.
There we go. We'll put it in the notes.
Yeah. It's APEXRID.
Josh.
Josh, stick to the script, okay, buddy? Don't throw in every small comment I make.
No, he's really good about it. Plus, both of our audios are separate channels. Yeah.
No, he knew I was going to do that example. So,
yes. If we want to bring value to the audience, and you're subject matter experts on making products more reliable, if you have to focus on just one thing, if somebody were to walk away from this conversation with just one thing to think about, other than buying your book, what would that be as far as making products more reliable?
Yep. It would be time to reliability, which is a term that I created because I felt everybody was just flat out lying to themselves and getting themselves in trouble. And what they were lying to themselves about was time to market. So one of the biggest driving factors in any product development program is time to market. This thing has to be out in November 2024, and that is very much not negotiable, or there better be an unbelievable reason. And a lot of decisions get driven by that. And so in product development, sometimes things come up and, you do need to negotiate time. We found this issue that's very concerning. We want to do this types of testing or analysis that may yield issues, even though we don't see them right now. And those things can easily get turned down or pushed aside. So this is where the dishonesty is time to market is when you released a product, but you're implying that that's when the engineering team moves on to the new product, right? You're implying that that's when you stop spending on development. But so often that's not the case because the product has a lot of issues, and some you know of and some you don't. And the team stays on and they're continuing to fix things, and you're quickly releasing updates, and trying to get the next revision out there, and even replacing stock or sending something to the customers and then sending them a new one even before something breaks because it's a defective item. And then, of course, there's all the issues the customers are finding that you could have found in development. And I call that the recovery period. So then when the recovery period concludes, when the team really can move on, let's say 90% of your development team really can move on to the next product, the budget does really drop to just what you expected. And so I was like, it needs a name if we're going to talk about it. And that's time to reliability. So time to reliability is time to market plus the recovery period. And it's amazing when you start to really honestly measure what that time is of truly releasing the product, which means you've concluded the development program. You start making smarter decisions. And then what you find is all of a sudden time to reliability becomes shorter. Then time to reliability becomes that time to market that you originally wanted. And then you start making products even quicker than the way you used to. So you all of a sudden start to be able to have product development programs that make better products with less investment, and you release them quicker. And that seems not believable that you can have it all, but you truly can. And it really starts with just honestly measuring, when you are done developing a product.
Have you come across companies that do this really well?
It's something newer that I would say I first used the word time to reliability probably 10 months ago. And it was because I needed a name for it, because I just over and over saw the inability to really make good decisions without true, honest feedback. So there's companies that do better than others. Unfortunately, those companies usually have had to have been burned a bunch of times, right? To where they really have to be like, all right, let's be honest. We pushed it out the door, but do you remember that extra $5 million we spent, an extra 8 months? Like this time when somebody comes forward and says, I found these issues, you can bring that up as evidence of when there's the pushback of like, is it really that bad a thing? Be like, yeah, remember last time when we showed you this thing and you blew past it and then it cost us another $5 million later and we could fix this right now in a week? So quite often the companies that do this better, unfortunately, have the scars. And that's where the lessons came from. And what I want to do is help companies be able to operate this way without having to experience all the scars and hardships.
So what type of problems are they experiencing when they find you?
So typically, there's new product development and then helping with existing products. And so I would say kind of in practice, one of the things is so often when a new product is developed, like the prototype is made, leadership wants to know how reliable is it? And they push hard to do a lot of testing to measure the reliability of the product. And this takes resource and time. Well, I can save you 6 months of testing and $300,000 right now and tell you it's crap. It's a prototype. Like, it's not going to be good. It's going to have tons of issues. So instead of creating that situation where for the teams, they're backed into a corner where one, they are measuring something that they know isn't good. So you pretty quickly, just by human nature, start dismissing things. Oh, that's a one-off. That won't happen again. Or you kind of start putting more nominal stresses on it or making excuses for observed things that could be issues. And secondly, you're losing your resource and your time to be doing the testing that actually improves the design. Because the tests that improve a design are not the same tests that measure a design. So you're having the precious little bit of time you have in a resource being directed away from the tools that can actually make the product better, that we know is not good. It's a prototype. And you're being almost forced to be a little bit to be dishonest, not in a nefarious way, but you're seeing issues and you're like, oh, we'll try to do our best to fix that later on. And it's so much more difficult to fix it later on. Or you're just changing the criteria just because really your job's on the line, and the executives don't understand that they are forcing a situation that is tying the hands of the people who can make the design better, and also making them measure it in a way that, again, is the beginning of the dishonest metrics that just hurt you later. And it's all done in sincerity of trying to do the best thing. But this is where the growth, this is why I want the executives to grow. This is why I'm switching my focus from the technical teams to adding, because over and over again, I've seen how executives need to do things better. And that's where the next level of growth is. That's where the next generation of companies come in that dominate markets and destroy their competitors. Competitors cannot keep up if leadership is structuring programs in these ways where you are rapidly growing the robustness of a design very early in the program, and you are steering and driving your program decisions based on real honest metrics that are really looking at the full picture. You're going to make the best decisions.
It reminds me, as you're talking, it reminds me a lot about, I believe his name's Eric, the founder of Zoom, the video conferencing system. I believe he was at GoToMeeting or WebEx, one of the big players before, and he was suggesting these new, technology features to implement, new ways to go about doing this. And they said, no, we've already made such a big investment. We're just going to ride it out. And then he left, and then he started this, and look at what it is today. Everybody knows Zoom. And so it's no surprise to me that you'll have these large organizations that are doing these somewhat backwards processes, or at least any highly inefficient ways of working, deadlines and, brushing stuff off because you have to hit the deadline. And then those people that are the practitioners there getting frustrated with that, leaving and either joining a startup that has better practices or starting their own company that has better practices and doing it the right way off the bat. Do you see that happening at all in the industry?
Oh, yes. You're fine. So there's more than one where I've been brought in to a company to help them, and they effectively, leadership doesn't listen, and the technical people, the engineers, the directors, even the VPs are like, oh my God, this is it. This is the right thing. But executive leadership just won't let them do it. It's like, no, like the little example I gave of like, no, I want you to measure the reliability of this. I want to start measurements. And they're like, it's not good. Like, I found this issue. Let me fix it. I don't want to do this other test that helps me know how to make it more robust. And they're like, no. And so a lot of times, eventually I might choose to disengage. I mean, I've fired customers, and, I'm kind of being funny, but I've had people say, okay, what do you, we finish this phase, what do you propose next? And I've actually, in a written response, said, I suggest we disengage at this point, and if you want to reach out to me at a later date, just because I want satisfaction. And then what'll happen is 6 months, a year later, some of these people who really understood what I was doing and wanted to happen have left, gone to another company. And if it's a smaller, sometimes they take a higher position, or maybe it is a startup. And the first, early on, they say, hey, we need to call this guy Adam. I worked with him before. This is what we need to do. And so they've moved themselves to an arena where they see the open-mindedness, or they have the ability to direct, to do it. So in the end, it's a success for me because I got through to people and they saw it and got it. They just had to go somewhere else where they could participate in it.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because on both of our product lines, sponsorship and making podcasts for other companies, it doesn't happen all the time, but there's at least been one instance on both of them where we were selling into somebody. They wanted to do it, but management wasn't on board. Then they ended up leaving, and a couple months later reaching out to us and doing the deal with their new company because they knew that's what they wanted to do, and It made sense, and the other team wasn't on board. So I think that doesn't get talked a lot about in leadership. In a lot of leadership, personal development, and we talk about relationships, and we talk about how relationships can be useful and valuable and profitable, but that actual aspect of people moving and changing companies and understanding your product or your brand, I don't hear that talked about a lot. Maybe I'm just in the wrong circles, though.
I think the thing is that when you look at when people leave companies, they're never leaving a company, they're leaving their immediate leadership. Almost always. Like, I've rarely seen somebody leave a company and be like, my boss and my boss's boss were amazing. We're totally on the same page. Like, that doesn't happen. It's that there's just this difference in philosophy, and things do change fast, and even like you said with the Zoom thing, where even, he was in an industry that was brand new and booming, but you had people at the top who weren't, looking out at what else was out there and weren't looking within their organization to be open-minded. But, but on the other hand too, I mean, we can complement, the idea of listening to your people, but that doesn't always work out too, right? I mean, there's also times where sometimes the leaders do really have, I don't want to poo-poo the idea that leadership doesn't know what's going on. You could probably come up with just as many examples where the leaders stood their ground and were spot on, too. And a lot of people underneath left and they were wrong. But, but when there is something that is a very consistently well-supported area of growth and improvement, that's not the case, right? So, for example, if you go to when, I'm a big car guy, the Japanese invasion of the 70s, right? Toyota and Honda, Nissan showed up, and all of a sudden we're showing how you can make an extremely reliable car that is, good gas mileage and at a good cost point. And, a lot of the American car companies were like, nobody wants that, and it doesn't matter. And then sales took over, they clearly began to dominate to where at one point Toyota became the number one automotive manufacturer in the world, replacing GM. And the American or Western car companies that did realize that, and follow that survived, and the ones that didn't. So, it's not that every idea is great, but sometimes it's very obvious that the tide is rising because of something new, something to the degree what I said. I think you'll dominate any market if leadership really begins to measure the results of activities associated to reliability and making decisions based on the correct metrics. I think you won't be able to compete. I think if within any industry, if there's somebody doing that, it's going to be very difficult to compete because you'll be spending more effort and getting less results.
So the one takeaway is to focus on time to reliability, making your product reliable.
Time to reliability is to honestly measure when a program is truly completed. It's not when you put it on the shelves and then you're still developing. It's when, you can set something like when 80% of our development resource comes off the program. When, something like that is your time to reliability. It's the traditional time to market plus the recovery phase, which is really still continuing to develop. So be honest with yourself, make honest metrics that really are what you are saying they are and imply they are, and you'll just make better decisions.
What's your favorite book on the topic that you didn't write?
On this topic?
Reliability as a whole.
Well, here's the thing, is that good reliability and any good growth in an area, you look out the topics outside and you bring them in. And I love and know him personally, Steven Spear's High Velocity Edge. And he wrote about how the reason why all the Western manufacturers, he studied Toyota in great detail. He's at MIT now. And he, in his PhD thesis, went and worked on the product development, on the actual production lines in Toyota, worked on the actual production lines in GM, like assembling seats and stuff like that. And went into that level of detail. And what he realized is that one of the reasons why the Western companies really never caught up was because they were replicating what, let's say, Toyota was doing, the steps they were doing. They never replicated the mindset that makes you grow. They never replicated the mindset where you were always looking to improve, where you are, they were just copying the steps. And I just thought that was just a brilliant idea. And he called that the high velocity edge. And I really enjoyed that.
It's hard to get that at your company. We've got about 15 people now, and it's taken me years to get the people that have the same mindset. Yeah, it's tough, man. Dude, this is exciting. What other things do we want to get out there to the world? We talked about T3. We talked about your motorcycle adventures and journeys. We talked about time to reliability and the new book. You can't pre-order the new book yet, can you?
You cannot. No, it's in its first phase of editing.
All right. Well, when it's out and everything, send it over to us so that we can update the description and be able to talk about it publicly.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. We did it. Podcast number 3. You're in the top 1% now.
I'm a 3-timer.